Hello and welcome. I'm Nitin Gokhale. Past 15 days, the world has watched with horror and with surprise the Chinese aggression against Taiwan in the wake of the US Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei, which enraged the People's Republic of China no end. And then the kind of military drills that were conducted around Taiwan as if to bully Taiwan, as if to make fear mongering against the Taiwanese people. The PRC actually went ahead and conducted more than expected military drills beyond the 4 days that they had uh, declared. So, what is the fallout of that, and why did the PRC take this aggressive stand? And what are the future prospects of the aggression from China, and whether China is serious about carrying out the threat of invading and making the reunification a reality, reunification of PRC with Taiwan, a reality in the future, is something that we are going to discuss in this program. And I'm privileged to be joined by Dr. Lai Yi Chung, who is the president of the Prospects Foundation in Taiwan and strategic affairs analyst in his own right, very well respected across the world. Thank you for joining, Doctor. Let me just straight away ask you, what do you make of these military drills, and did they have any impact on the decision making in the Taiwanese government?
I think the Chinese military drill against Taiwan, especially from August 4th all the way to August 10th, they just announced it that they are going to temporarily just conclude it, but replace it with more of the ordinary or the constant patrol, the deep inside of the Taiwan ADIZ patrol. But basically, what we observe in those military drills is that first of all, the so-called the China was reacting to the Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, so that they started this drill. Well, we do not think that's a correct characterization of those drills, because you cannot amass the resources and the scale of the military in such a short time. So that definitely is a pre-planned, but using the Pelosi's visit as an excuse to conduct this drill. Whether China conduct this before what they anticipated wanting to do, that remains an open question. But I would say that blaming Pelosi as the one that incur the Chinese reaction for those military drill, that's the incorrect characterization of this event. And second, the way that China conduct this drill seems to suggest that this drill is basically a practices for the invasion operation against Taiwan. So in the first day, we saw missiles dropping on several zones outside Taiwan. Some of them, they are for the trying to be the blockade against Taiwan's major port. Some of them are intended to prevent the foreign assistance. So that's for the first day. And the second day, we started to see the ships surrounding Taiwan, military ships surrounding Taiwan, and also the military plan that continues to harass and they try to enter several areas within Taiwan. But of course, it had been repelled by the Taiwan's Air Force. And the third day, it seems that the Chinese started to amass the military, the air and the sea assets to a certain area that is basically in the northwest of Taiwan, which indicates that this could be the area for the Chinese major amphibious operation against Taiwan. Now, the fourth days, because after 3 days, the fourth days, we started to see that the China continue to amass its navy assets and the ships, continue not only surrounding Taiwan, but also have a deep incursion into several of the Taiwan's proximity waters. So that those are the things when we look at it, it is basically like a dress rehearsal about the invasion operations. And this invasion operation also involved the isolation campaign, and which means to us that probably China was started this invasion operations first with isolation campaign, trying to wear Taiwan off from the international connections. And
True.
because we do see that in the 4 or 5 days, we already saw accumulated more than 150 international flights has been canceled, and not to mention a good number of the international shippings and the transit that also has been rerouted or canceled here. So should this campaign started and prolonged for a significant period of time, then it probably could result to a semi-isolation of Taiwan itself from the rest of the world. So that is
That
why
was, that was
when
their
China,
objective.
yeah,
That was
that
their
is why
objective.
when China, suddenly they pronounced that they want to prolong the exercises. The foreign minister of Taiwan immediately called for international press conference to call out that this danger, especially the kind of the isolation campaign against Taiwan, that could result to the material as well as others losses in Taiwan's economy.
True. So you have watched this space, this tension between Taiwan and China for a long time. Would you sort of categorize this as the worst or the most intense campaign to isolate Taiwan and also kind of create a fear psychosis amongst the population, amongst the people? If you compare this with what happened in the mid 90s, the Taiwan Straits crisis, how would you rate that crisis compared to what happened in the past fortnight or so?
Yeah, in terms of the military scale and the preparation, definitely this is one of the worst. The military intimidation by China against Taiwan since 1996, and actually the scale is bigger than the 1996 of the Chinese missile crisis against Taiwan. But in terms of the civilian people's response from Taiwan toward this the intimidation by China, the 1996 we saw a good number of Taiwanese people and the plummeting of the stock market. Some people started to trying to get the air tickets to go out, and they believed that that could be the end of Taiwan. So there were some phenomena like those. But at this time, in Taiwan, we saw everyone basically is going to the restaurant and just do their own shopping. There is no rush to the stock market or the selling about their assets. The people are not that concerned regarding the Chinese possible invasions. I think the one of the reason is that first of all, after the 26 years of the 1996 and the crisis, people started to find a way to cope with the issue. And second is that Taiwan's military and our defense also improved quite significantly since 1996. And we understand that it will not be easy for China to really put their military, the troops on the soil of Taiwan. And they will incur significant losses among themselves should they try to do so. The third thing is that this time we also saw a good number of international support. First from the G7 countries, and then the US, Australia, and Japan, they have a common statement. And surprisingly, well, that's pleasantly, that the ASEAN, which consider always to be very neutral, come up with its own way of expressing the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. And I think that China was surprised as well. And
True.
later on, the New Zealand and other countries. So that this time we are not, we feel, people here feel that we are not alone like last time. Because last time, not even Japan wasn't saying anything. But this time we saw Japan protest very vehemently against China because the missile fell from China, the four of them actually dropped into Japan's exclusive economic zones. And Japan was furious about those. So this time I think the differences between this time and last time in terms of the how people feel about Taiwan's connection with the whole world. Last time in 1996, we feel very much isolated and alone. But this time, although China put more military pressure against Taiwan, I think the people in Taiwan believe that we are not alone, and we are in a very good position to defend ourselves. So I think that explains the differences.
Very, very interesting. And in fact, that shows that as a nation, Taiwan has grown not just confident but capable, both militarily and economically and diplomatically. From the points that you made, it is very clear that Taiwan is not alone. People don't feel it anymore that they're alone, which I think is a factor that PRC will have to really get into their calculations if they are planning for some kind of invasion or some kind of military operations going forward, a real military operation, or the final kind of bullet that will be fired. Do you think the PRC military leadership or even the political leadership miscalculated this response or this stand taken by the people in Taiwan and also by countries like Japan and Australia and of course the ASEAN? You said they were surprised with. Probably Taiwan was surprised with India's lack of any statement as we talked about it. Do you think India should have been more vocal? Is what was the expectation, or you think India has its own compulsion not to speak anything on the issue between China and Taiwan?
Well, first, let me talk about the higher thing about Chinese reactions. I think with the level of the express international support for Taiwan in comparison with last time, basically there is zero support. Only in the last minute that we saw two U.S. aircraft carrier battle group come to Taiwan's aid. But this time, very early on, we saw the political statement one after another, and there are also some significant nuance in terms of the changes in terms of policy that started to occur, such as the U.S., Japan, and Australia to talk about the one China policy where applicable. And this infuriates China very much because they found out that their action actually result to the possible change, even abandonment, partially about the one China policy. And they ask for this for themselves. But I think the Chinese look at the whole development. Probably they believe that in terms of their military drill, they are partially successful because they think they want to enforce a new kind of status quo, which want to squeeze Taiwan's defense base further. And so right now for Taiwan, the core task is to find a way and trying to do our best to repel and push back in order to restore the earlier status quo, so that we have enough defense perimeter for ourselves. But in terms of the international reaction, Chinese definitely feel that either they miscalculate or they know what this is coming, but they do not know how to respond to that. And that they have to live with those because they exhausted all their means trying to isolate Taiwan. And when you talk about the China trying to isolate Taiwan, the very reason that they are so angry about the Nancy Pelosi is precisely she represents the kind of international connection that the Taiwan needs to have, and China wanted to rear it off. But apparently, China this time only strengthened Taiwan's support from international community, as well as the need or the international community need to reach out to Taiwan. And I think that China, in this regard, definitely failed. And then let me go to the interesting case about India. Yes, the people here, especially strategic communities, when they look at India, and they feel a little bit puzzled about the no statement from India or no action from India. Especially, they saw the U.S., Japan, and Australia. They came out all together, and some of them even concluded that the reason that the Quad is not talking about this is precisely because of India's silence or the studied silence. And they are afraid that for the Quad not to say anything regarding this crisis, would that first reduce the capability or the credibility of the Quad itself in managing the regional affairs, because we believe the Quad is very critical, very important for the Indo-Pacific security arrangement. And second, regarding India's positions, I think the India, the studies silence, sometimes India could also think about that even just a political statement regarding the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits, and the not to use force to settle the differences. Those are the good enough statement, because that puts not only that put China on notice, but also let Taiwanese know that the India on principle is standing with Taiwan. Taiwan from India, Taiwan does not ask for the India's military support. Although if India wanted to extend the military support, Taiwan definitely will welcome. But we do know that each country have their own interest to take care of, and you have your own priority. So the Taiwan Strait crisis, when we think about this, we do not anticipate India to actually send in the military asset or the support for Taiwan. But importantly is that the India will be able to block Chinese the international narratives regarding how Taiwan should be a part of China, or how the international support for Taiwan is so illegitimate. Then India could play an important role to make those lies not to be happening, or at least to let those lies to be exposed in international arena in the area such as the United Nations. And also, I believe that India could also, in a way, to assist and work with ASEAN nations privately, let the U.S. or other country willing to support Taiwan to make it easier for them to do so, and for the country like China wanted to blockade Taiwan, make it difficult for them to do. All of this requires no direct India military or the very strong political actions. The statement, the intention they expressed, and also the private, the nuanced support from those actions. Those are the things that I think will be critical for Taiwan to sustain its resistance and defend itself. And
Fair
if India really do that, that would definitely be much appreciated here in Taiwan.
Fair point, Doctor. Because certainly those who watch the India-China relations and the India-Taiwan relations certainly know that there has to be a nuanced approach to both, and India needs to recalibrate perhaps its own position vis-a-vis this crisis, because this crisis is not going to go away. And that is what my next question is to you. Do you see situation deteriorating further after what has happened in the past fortnight? Or do you think PRC will back down and now concentrate on the party congress and what happens thereafter? Is that something that you're looking at? Do you think that will happen, or it is going to get worse going forward?
Well, I have to say that because this time we do not have a really head-to-head against the PRC. Our ship and their ship, we are angling against each other to prevent them from entering a certain area. But the U.S. aircraft carrier this time they were a little bit further away, so that the kind of the U.S. pressure that China really did not feel it. Probably later on they will feel the kind of the repercussions coming from the United States should the U.S. will send more military assets into the Taiwan Straits or in the vicinity of Taiwan in order to show to the Chinese that their action to create a new status quo will not work. Yeah. But then I will say that it is precisely because of the relative mild military actions, not political. Political is very loud from many of our friends, but militarily, it's more or less of the not a lot of movement there, and we basically did this by ourselves. The China probably would like to do more in order to create the sustain and create and sustain this new status quo in which they believe they can squeeze Taiwan further. And so that's the issue we're going to witness. It probably will be the Xi Jinping wanting to double down, because we do know that Xi Jinping is the person who would not take a compromise as the winner. He only believe in two things: either I win or either you die. Although the both things they're the same thing, but that's how he this leadership under the Cultural Revolutions, and that's how he treats his enemy or non-enemy. And we have to remember those, and thus the strengths in a collective, the show of a collective support for each other. That will make it a very impressive image on him regarding his actions might entail. So that the international support from now on is more important than ever, and the work with Taiwan on all fronts, not just about the military, is also very critical. Because we anticipated that probably Xi Jinping would like to double down from now all the way to year 2024, and trying to influence Taiwan's presidential election so that force Taiwan to elect something that Xi Jinping like, not Xi Jinping dislike.
Yeah, indeed. And that's going to be the space that needs to be watched very carefully in the next 2 years or so. Even India has elections in 2024. Taiwan, excuse me, Taiwan has elections in 2024. And of course, there's the party congress in October. So lots of action expected. We will continue to come and speak to you, draw upon your experience and your insights. But for the moment, I have to end the conversation here. Thank you for your thoughts. As always, it's always a pleasure to speak to you and get your very frank comments on what the situation is in the Taiwan Straits and what the PRC is doing and what is the support that it's obtaining across the world. For the time being, it's goodbye, Doctor, and thanks for joining at a short notice.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure. So, viewers, do keep watching bharatshakti.in. You know where to reach us. Please send feedback. The guest from Taiwan has given us an extremely useful insight into how the situation has panned out. He was on the other channel that we have, Strat News Global, last week. But I thought viewers of bharatshakti.in also deserve to listen to a specialist like Dr. Lai Yi Chung, and therefore this conversation with a Taiwanese expert. For the time being, it's goodbye. Do keep watching bharatshakti.in, and of course keep sending feedback and watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, our social media handles are all available and visible to you. Do subscribe to them, do follow them, which will give us more idea about what everyone wants to listen to in the strategic and defense space. For the time being, it's goodbye.